Premier Doug Ford and his cabinet are going to be sworn in today at a ceremony at Queen's Park. It's happening this morning. And for his perspective on today's swearing-in ceremony, we're joined by the former leader of the Ontario Progressive Conservatives and the current CEO of the Ontario Real Estate Association, Tim Hudak. Tim, great to have you here this morning. I know you never got to choose your cabinet, but you were chosen for a cabinet minister a couple of years ago. We won't get into how many. But I wonder, what is today like as a caucus member? Does it feel like Christmas? But I guess some kind of feel like they might get Scrooged.
It's a bit of both. Well, you know ahead of time. So typically the call will go the day before. The reason for that is, well, you need to get there for the ceremony. There will be guests that are allowed today. So, you know, close family, maybe your campaign manager. You got to keep that secret. So you have to get into town. So the calls typically go the day before. You're just waiting by your phone for the call, right? Am I in? And what kind of position am I going to get? Or am I losing a position? And as soon as your phone rings, Nick, I mean, you just leap at it. And it's a great conversation. I mean, typically it's a senior staff person. And then they say, this is what the Premier is looking to give you as your position. Would you like to talk to the Premier? And then they patch you through. That's just to make sure there's not going to be any hiccups. And they listen to the Premier. One star member was one of my colleagues, actually, was so excited when he was put into cabinet. He actually forgot what he was given. And he had to call back later on and say, I'm in, but well, you know, what am I supposed to be doing? Well,
right.
It is a very exciting day.
That's pretty good. So you don't let it ring a few times just to play it cool, like, oh, I'm expecting this call. And I'm curious about the whole sort of process behind this. We realize the Premier, of course, is heavily involved, but who else is part of that decision team saying, you know, yes, I think Tim Hudak would be perfectly suited for this role, and no, maybe not this? I mean, who actually decides?
There will be, you know, close advisors to the Premier and his campaign team, a chief of staff, probably somebody that has a good relationship with caucus that will give that advice. And typically they'll come forward with a roster and say, you know, here's what we're suggesting in these areas. The Premier would have given some guidance earlier on, but then ultimately it's the Premier's call. And Premier Ford just takes some time on his own to move the pieces around, gets the final list, and then they start doing the phone calls. And what goes into this, it's really a bit of a witch's brew. I mean, talent for sure, who's performed very well. Where are you from in the province? Does the cabinet look like the modern face of Ontario? Where do you sit within the party? And where might your skill sets or geography fit in? You know, the mining minister is typically from Northern Ontario, right, by way of example. And I think what makes this very different, Nick, is now the Premier knows his team, new members of the team, and he's gotten used to the team that he inherited. That's a big difference from 2018, where the Premier's relationship or judgment may not have been accurate. This will truly be a Doug Ford cabinet. And
so, Tim, what are some of the perks and pressures of being in cabinet? It's a little more money, but also a lot more work.
No doubt about it. I mean, it is a thrill. So it pays about $168,000 a year. I think it's been pretty much frozen since the time I was there. You get a lot of additional staff. And it is a recognition of your skill set. It is more responsibility on top of your MPP job. And it is tremendously motivating. Right? Your chance to make a difference for the province as a whole. There may be an area that you're really interested in driving. You know, for example, Sylvia Jones becomes health minister. You know, she'll have her own view about the important structural changes that will take place. And then there's some big commitments from the campaign that are going to be awfully exciting. So if I'm Caroline Mulroney, who is my favorite to move in, keep it transportation, you've got Highway 413, you've got the Bradford bypass, some exciting projects you can really make a mark for the province.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So what do you think in terms of the mix it up or keep it sort of together? You mentioned Caroline Mulroney potentially staying at transportation, Bethlenfalvy finance, Lecce education. What are your thoughts on keeping people in place versus mixing up?
Keeping them in place. This has been a team that has been tremendously successful. Look at the management through the COVID crisis and then the strong victory in the election campaign. So if I were the Premier, I'd be very confident about the key pieces around. So steady hand at finance and Peter Bethlenfalvy for sure. Stephen Lecce, education minister, to try to keep that file on balance, has done a great job. Continue in that respect. Health is the new piece with Christine Elliott's retirement. And, you know, one that I'm cheering for personally, I think Steve Clark has done an incredible job at municipal affairs and housing. I mean, my day job with the Ontario Real Estate Association brought a new legislation, got the most homes built in the province in 30 years. So I'm cheering for him to stay in that job. That's my self-interest, I guess, but he's done a hell of a job.
All right, Tim Hudak, always great to get your perspective. Thanks for sort of helping us set this up. Of course, it all happens. Our special coverage starts at 10:30. Thanks for your time this morning.